the promise of the Zohar and the tragic passing of Reb Shamshon. What was that? What? Okay. So Reb Shamshon of Ostrepolyer was one of the greatest Kabbalists. He was born roughly around 1600. And he died, he was murdered by the Bogdan Khmelnitsky's gangs, the Cossacks, who swept through Ukraine and part of Poland and Lithuania in the mid-1600s, particularly the years 1648, 1649, and known as Tach V'Tat, Tov Ches and Tov Tes of the Jewish calendar. The truth is, there's actually another set of years called Kach V'Kat, exactly 300 years before. In 1348 and 1349 was the horrible saga of the Black Plague. Millions of people died throughout Europe, and of course the blame was pointed towards the Jews because apparently the percentage-wise some Yidden died, but the ratio wasn't exact. It seems like the Jews poisoned the wells, they claimed. Many say the reason, Al Pi Teva, why the Yidden had a much smaller percentage of fatalities is because we were cleaner than the average guy, always washing our hands in the morning, right, before we eat. There's always the washing, and that could have helped. And also, we also, Baruch Hashem, have an Eibishter in heaven, and he probably helped too. But Al Kapanim, the Goyim retaliated, and throughout Europe they killed tens of thousands of Jews in the year 1348 and 1349. So that's known as Kach V'Kat, Kuf Ches and Kuf Tes. The year 5000. This is the. I made 15. No. There should be. There's enough. Okay. So 300 years after that, exactly 300 years, the Eibishter's wrath is awakened again. And the Khmelnitsky Massacres, 1648, 1649. And Reb Shamshon of Ostrepolyer was murdered. Third day of Av, tonight. And let's look at number one. This is the entry of the Chidah in his Sefer Shem HaGdolim. What does he say about Reb Shamshon of Ostrepolyer? From the city of Ostrepolyer, but that's not where he died. He says, Hu HaKadosh, he's a holy man, Chiber Kama Chiburim BeKabbalah, made many works in Kabbalah. K'moshe Hizkir Hu Zal, as he himself mentions in his introduction to his Sefer Don Yodin. That's a Kabbalah, that's a Sefer, and in his introduction, Reb Shamshon mentions many works that he wrote. V'hoya loy Magid. He had a Magid. A Magid is a spiritual being, whether it's a soul from heaven or an angel, that comes to learn with you. There were many people over time that had a Magid. The Baal Shem Tov had a Magid for 10 years. Achia Hashiloni came to him and taught him for 10 years, from when the Baal Shem Tov was 26, until he was 36. The Baal Shem Tov said Achia Hashiloni began with the word Bereshis, and it took them 10 years until they finished Zoy Sabrocha, Le'ene Kol Yisrael. They spent 10 years learning the Chumash, and that was it. Then Achia Shaloni said, I'm leaving, now it's time for you to take over. And when the Baal Shem Tov was 36 is when he revealed himself. So he had a Magid. In fact, this was one of the core disputes between the Vilna Gaon, between the Masnagdim and the Chassidim. What was it that irked the Vilna Gaon, or at least had him not find favor, that Chassidus didn't find favor in the eyes of the Vilna Gaon? So there were many issues. One of them is the fact that Chassidus is so much built on the Baal Shem Tov receiving revelations from heaven. The Vilna Gaon said about himself, he was offered, a Magid came to him from heaven, and he refused it because he wanted his learning to be his own accomplishment, his own toil. And this is what, thank you, the Litvishers pass on. And it's an interesting, another root cause of the debate. It was an altruistic debate, You could really talk about that all night. And Fabreng, should the gates of heaven be openly open, or the Eibishter wants us, within the darkness of this world to create our own light, etc. Rabbi Yosef Karo had a Magid, and Rabbi Yosef Karo wrote a whole sefer about the teachings that he learned from the Magid. Says the Chidor Reb Shamshon as well. V'haya bizman.
Yosef Karo learned from the Magid?
He had a Magid that came. He had a Magid that came. Yeah. Not the Magid, a Magid, sorry. V'haya bizman hagoyin mereina Yeshua mikrako. We're going to see who this fellow was, Rabbi Yeshua of Krakow, the Rav Pnei Yeshua Shilas Atshuvas. That means there's two Pnei Yeshuas. There's the Pnei Yeshua on Gemara, and there's his grandfather who authored the response to Pnei Yeshua, and we'll talk about him soon. But says the Chidok Moshe Tira B'Likutim Shebesefer Hanisker. You'll see in the Sefer we mentioned Don Yodin that he lived at that time. In fact, they died the exact same year. This Rabbi Yeshua of Krakow died in 1648, and so did Rabbi Shamshon Ostrepolyer. Ubavanisenu harabim, with our sin, says the Chidah, Nerag, Rabbi Shamshon was killed in the year Tav Ches, 1648, and it was today, it was the 3rd of Av. Ba'amdai bebeis hakneses, when he stood in shul, Ma'utaf, he was wrapped in tzitzis and tefillin. I'm going to see more about this. But first, I just want to share with you two vertelach of Reb Shamshon, unbelievable stuff, just to get a bit of a feeling of who he was. And we have some fascinating things to see throughout this year. I hope you enjoy. Look at number 2. This is from the Rebbe's Igris. It's a letter the Rebbe wrote in relatively his early years to Rabbi Gringlas, Reb Zev Wolf Gringlas, who lived in Montreal. Rabbi Gringlas was a Tomim in the branch of Tomchei Tmimim in Atwotsk, in Poland, near Warsaw, and then he came to Montreal, and he was a mashpi in the yeshiva, and all the bochum say miraculous stories about the fellow. He was a Chassidish Yid, and he dabbled in Kabbalah, definitely to some degree. Yeah, let's hear. Any specifics? Can you share any specifics? They say he would be able to tell if a bocher missed parts of davening or this or that. Or
He's gone over to Bacham and because it was something about tefillin, and the Bacham would be like, he'd run to go put on film.
I heard from one guy that he told him, what happened to brochus this morning? So the bocher said, I said it. He said, yeah, but you weren't wearing a hat and jacket.
Well,
Yeah.
You don't have to be a Kabbalist for that one.
Yeah, that was a Maimah Kubal. Stories.
I heard he used to daven fast.
Some Kabbalists daven fast, some daven slow.
That's true.
So, there was actually a Lubavitcher Chassid a couple decades ago in Yerushalayim. Reb Moshe Weber. Moshe Weber was a mashpia in the Yeshiva Teiras Emes, where I learned in Yerushalayim, but he was there well before me. And he was once walking down the street in Yerushalayim, and there was a bocher holding his hand, escorting him. And the bocher's out of the corner of his eye, he saw a sign, an advertisement that was an inappropriate picture. It was mamash out of the corner of his eye. Moshe Weber was on the other side of him, just holding his hand. Instantly, Moshe Weber turned and gives him a little frask on his cheek. He was able to feel. Anyhow, okay. So this is a letter number 2 that the Rebbe writes to Rabbi Gringlas. It's in the first volume of the Rebbe's Igris. And the Rebbe is discussing a Torah of Reb Shamshon Ostrepolyer. And it's an incredible medrash. This is mamash unbelievable. The shir itself is worth it just for this. Yep. Number 2 says that a Bilikutim Yekarim in the precious collections of Nemotin, page 38, it says, Shol Rab Abela Mevilna Satzemach Tzedek. Rab Abela of Vilna was one of the greatest scholars in Vilna in the times of... he was alive during the times of the Vilna Gaon, but he was much younger, so he was kind of the next generation. And he met up with the Tzemach Tzedek, and he was actually incredibly impressed with the Tzemach Tzedek. And he told the Tzemach Tzedek, you're a young man, how do you know so much? And the Tzemach Tzedek said, I received the bracha from my grandfather, the Alter Rebbe, that anything I learned once, I never forget. And Rabbi Abela told him, I want to tell you a story. He said, I was once in the outside the Vilna Gaon study, and a misnagid came in with a big piece of paper. And the paper was a chayrim against the Chassidim, saying you could harm the Chassidim. And there were lots of signatures. And they got the Vilna Gaon to sign. And then they asked me, says Rabbi Abela, to sign. And Rabbi Abela, they said, even the Vilna Gaon, who's an angel of Hashem, signed. So Rabbi Abba said, I told them, listen, when it came to the Akedah, when it came to Shecht Yitzchak, the Eibishter himself spoke to Avram. When it came to save Yitzchak, Vayikra Elav Malach Hashem min Hashamayim, an angel came to teach you what? When it comes to save a Jew, you can hear from an angel. When it comes to harm a Jew, you got to hear from God himself. So it could be the Vilna Gaon's like an angel, but when it comes to harming Yidden, I'm not ready to sign. Said this Rabbi Abba has another story here. He asked at Tzemach Tzedek Pshat in the following medrash. The Talmidim asked Rebbe, there's different versions if they ask Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi or Rabbi Shua ben Levi, how many names does God have? He responds, Rachmana libaboy, God wants your heart. Simply that means, why are you dabbling, delving into the names of God? God wants you to serve him wholeheartedly. Then Amru Loi, but they weren't finished. They said, Mipnei ma kulam shaloi ala seder ve'echad keseder. 3 are out of order, 1's in order. Very strange. What are they asking? And he answers to them, Mipnei sheshmoi shal kadosh baruch hu emes. God's name is true. God's name is truth. The Gemara says, Chaysomai shal kadosh baruch hu emes. The Eibishter's signet ring is truth. Hashem Elokim emes. The Eibishter is truth. That's the end of the medrash. It doesn't make any sense. They ask him, how many names does Hashem have? He says, God wants your heart. Why are some of them one order, one's in the other order? He says, God's name is truth. This is what you call a medrash pliya. It doesn't make, it's a wonder, it doesn't make any sense. Now, there's in another version of the medrash, it has the following. Look at number 3. That the teacher, Rebbe, responds to them that Yesh, he quoted this pasuk from Koheles, Yesh echad ve'ein sheni, gam ben va'ach ein loy. That Yesh echad, simply the pasuk means you have a person who works very hard to make geld. Ve'ein sheni, does it by himself, no help. In addition, gam ben va'ach ein loy, he has no brother, no son to enjoy his riches. That's what Shlomo HaMelech is talking about. Somehow, in some versions,
selfish?
No, whatever. It's just somebody works so hard, and he just doesn't have anyone to share it with. It's just Shlomo is just reflecting on Kehelis is just Shlomo HaMelech's in his old age, and he's reflecting on the intricacies, everything about life, right? The vicissitudes of life.
Wow.
But look, So what in the world does this medrash mean? And especially if you throw in this pasuk from Koheles. So that to go back to number 2, the Rebbe says that Tzemach Tzedek told Reb Abba al derech hanal. He quoted him the answer of Reb Shamshon. What's the answer of Reb Shamshon? Unbelievable. You ready? You guys will be ready for this. How many names does God have? So in Nigla he has this name Tzvois, there's Shin Dalad Yud, there's Aleph Dalad Nun Yud, there's Elokim. In Kabbalah, there's 4 names. There's the Shem Ab, Shem Sag, Ma, and Ban. What are these names? They're all the Yud K Vav K. Beis Nun. They're all the Yud K Vav K. But if you spell out the letters like Yud Vav Dalad for the Yud, and the Hey is a Hey Yud, depending on how your mamala you fill in the letters, you'll get a gematria either of 45, which is Shem Mem Hey, or 52, which is Ban, 52, or 63, which is Sag, or 72, which is Shem Ab. So the 4 letters, the 4 names of Hashem in Kabbalah are all from the Yud Kei Vav Kei, depending on how you spell the full Yud Kei Vav Kei. Is it Yud Vav Dalad, and is it Hey Yud or Hey Aleph? And depending on how you do that, you get 4 variations. So there's 4 names. If you add the Shem Ab, Sag, Ma, and Ban, add all 4 together, you get 232. That's the Rosh Tevis of Rachmana Libaboy. So in other words, the students asked Rebbe, how many names does God have? So when he says God wants your heart, the Rosh Tevis, Rachmana Libaboy, Reish Lamed Beis, 232 is the total of Ab, Sag, Ma, and Ban. If you work it out, you'll see. But then they ask, wait a second. 3 out of the 4 names are in one order. 1 is the other way. Shem Ab, the ayin is the big number, the 70. The Beis is the 2. Sag, First 60, then 3. Ma, first 40, then 5. But the ban first has the 2 and then the 50. All the others have the big number, the tens, and then the single digit. One of them, ban, is the small 2 and then the 50. Why is that? So he told them, he quoted the Pasuk in Koheles. Well, he said, because God's name is true, right? God's name is true. What does it mean, true? Emes is Gematria 441. Aleph Mem Sof 441, which is 9. You put it together as 9. 9 is the true number. 9 is the true number, right? Any multiple of 9, you add the digits, you get to 9. There's so many combinations. If you take any single number there is, and you flip the order of the digits and you minus the smaller from the higher, you'll also get a multiple of 9, etc., etc. There's so many different things that there are with the number 9. In fact, the Arizal says 9 is the highest number. How so? Imagine you have every number with, let's say it has 5. Let's say it has 5 digits. What? Okay. Well, so the Arizal says 9. Because 10 is really 1. But if you had a graph, it's 1 in the column of Assyrius, of tens. It's 1 group of 10. 100 is 1, just in the next column of the hundreds. Right? Imagine if you have a number of 10 digits, there's 10 different columns. And a 1 is just 1 point of that column. 9 is the highest that there is. 9 is truth. Because Emes is 441 is 9. So Rebbe's telling the students, the Eibishter's names have to get you to 9. Ab is 70 plus 2. 72 is 7 plus 2 is 9. Sag, 60 plus 3 is
9.
Good. Ma, 40 and 5 is
9.
What about Nab? What would Nab be? Nun is 50 and 7. So you got to do Ban. Why?
Ban.
Because Tov is 400. But then you take the final letters. There's Man Sapach. Final mem is worth 500.
Wait,
I'm sorry, I mixed the chaf. No, I mixed the chaf. The final chaf is worth 500. A final mem is 6. A final nun is 700. So ban is 2 and 700 gets you 9. That's why it had to be backwards. So this is how he what?
It's really 7, not 5.
Nab 50 plus 2 would get you 7. Ban, a final nun is worth 700.
No, it means the value of Shlos Nun is 7 in Gematria.
700, yeah. Yeah, well, then
Zayin.
after Tov, you go to the final letters, Man Sapach, the final letters, and each one goes another 100.
There's a million ways to calculate.
Yeah.
Gematria, everything works.
No. So look at number 3. You're not going to believe this. Number 3, he says, this is the Pshat in Koheles. Yesh echad ve'ein sheni. Yesh echad. Yesh means the bigger number, echad is first. Ein means what isn't, meaning the smaller number is sheni is second. So by 3 of the names, the bigger one comes first. Shem Ab, first you have the 70. Sag, first the 60. Ma, first the 40. But Gam Ban, if you're going to do the same thing by Shem Ban, have the base first. Och Ein Loi doesn't have 9. Och is Gematria 9. It's not going to have the 9. Och Ein Loi, it's not going to have the 9.
Got the chills.
Gam Ben, if you're going to do the same thing by the Ben and have the Nun first, you're not going to have the Shamshon of Ostrepolyer. Och Ein Loi, you're not going to have the 9. And that's why it had to be flipped. And that's how he learns this medrash. Unbelievable. Anyhow, so you see that Tzemach said that quoted the same word. That
quoted this.
Yeah, this word to Rabbi Abela. Rabbi Abela, who had asked him, I said the Pshat in the Medrash, he quoted at least part of this word of Reb Shamshon Ostrepolyer. So you see the origin, to come up with such a thing, the originality, and the way it flows in that pasuk in Koheles is absolutely unbelievable. That's one word from Reb Shamshon. And he's full of these incredible lightning ideas. Another one, we'll just do one more. Number 4 is a Rashi in Chumash that everybody knows. In Parshas Vayechi, Yankov gets together his family, and he tells them, I want to tell you what's going to happen ba'achris hayomim, in the end of days.
Then he goes away, no?
Exactly. So Rashi says in number 4, Bikish legalas es haketz, Yankov wanted to reveal the end, v'nistalko mimena shchina, but the Eibishter, the Shechina left him, and therefore Hischaloim Dvarim Acherim, he spoke other things. He benches the sons. He doesn't tell them what's going to happen in the end of days like he told them he would. And Rashi is quoting from the Gemara Pesachim and the Medrash Rabbah fine. Says of Shamshon, unbelievable. When the brothers sold Yosef, which is how we got to Egypt, what name of God did they stain? They stained the name Eke, Aleph, Hey, Yud, Hey. How do we know? Because in Parsha Shmois, when Moshe asks Hashem, I'm going to go to the Jews in Egypt, they're going to ask me, what's God's name? And Hashem said, my name is Ek. In other words, that's the name that they're rectifying by being in Mitzrayim. Right? The Rebbe actually has a whole sikha saying, when Moshe told God, the Jews will ask me, what's your name? You know what Moshe was saying? And the Rebbe cried throughout the sikha. It was a Shabbos sikha in the early 70s. And the Rebbe said that Moshe said, I'm going to come to the Jews, and they're going to say, now God heard us after all these years. What's the name of God? What type of God is he that he wakes up decades after decades of spilled Jewish blood? Now Johnny come lately. As an incredible sikha, and the Rebbe explains what Hashem's answer was. But upon him, Hashem tells Moshe, the name of mine that they're rectifying by being in Egypt is the Eke Asher Eke, Aleph, Hey, Yud, Hey. Now, we got to Egypt because the brothers sold Yosef, right? So that was the name that was stained. Fine. What's the gematria of Eke? Aleph is 1, Hey, 2 Heys and a Yud gets us 21. 21. So 26 is a Yud K Vav K. So, how many brothers sold Yosef? But Pashtus, there were only 9, because there are 12 Shvatim. Binyamin wasn't there, he was by his father. Yosef was the victim, and Reuven wasn't there either, according to the Medrash and Rashi. So 12 minus 3 gets us 9, there are 9 brothers. So Yankov thinks there are 9 brothers, 9 of them stained the name Eke. What's 9 times 21? 189. So Yankov thinks, do you know how many years we're going to be in Egypt? 189 years. So when will we go out? In year 190. Ketz. So he says Yankov wanted to reveal the Ketz. Yankov wanted to reveal that in the year Ketz, in the year Kuf Tzadik, you're going out. Because after 189 years, you're all done. Because 9 brothers stained the Shem Eke. But he forgot something. V'nistalka mimena shchina. He forgot the Pirkei that Rebbe Lezer says that the 9 brothers huddled together. And they said they wanted to make a cherem no one could reveal to Yaakov. They needed a minion. So they brought God in. The Eibishter was involved in it. So the Eibishter stained his own name. It's another 21 years. He forgot about that. And Taka, what's 189 plus 21? 210. 189 plus 21. 210. That's exactly how many years we were there. We were there exactly 210 years. Exactly. Because there were 10 fellows that stained God's name. God's one of the 10, but Yankov wasn't going to accuse the Eibishter. So he wanted to reveal Ketz in year 190 you're going out. But he didn't realize that the Eibishter himself was involved in the deed, and therefore there's another 21 years have to be added, which gets you to 210. Anyhow, and he has many of these types of unbelievable ideas. Okay, and he was Nebuch, he was murdered tomorrow, the Gimel of, in 1648. He was in the city of Polna. Now, during those times of Khmelnitsky, this is not a history class, and I'm sure many of you know the details, that there was an uprising. The peasants and the Cossacks throughout Ukraine wanted to overthrow the rulership of the Polish Perytzim, the Polish noblemen who were the landlords, but they were, missing in action, MIA. They were living in Poland. They were demanding rent, and the peasants were unable to cough up the money. And they were angry, and they wanted to overthrow the Polish landlords. In addition, there was also a religious fight because the Ukrainians, the Russians, they were Russian Orthodox or Greek Orthodox, and the Polish were Roman Catholic, and there's no fight like a fight for the sake of God, right? And here's the issue, that the Polish noblemen were living in Poland, so who was collecting their taxes? Who were their men on the field? It was the Yidden. So the Yidden were the face.
After the expulsion, he bought 20,000 trees.
So It began in the early 1640s. There was an uprising. A couple thousand Yidden were killed already then. And then 1648, 49 were the big years. How many people were killed? The Shach, the great Shach, was alive then. We'll get to that soon. The great Shach was alive. And he wrote a little book, it's a couple pages, called Megillas Eifa. Megillas Eifa. And he writes about the atrocities and the horrible things. He says it was about 100,000. He gives a number, about 100,000 were killed. It wasn't just those 2 years, there was the years before and the year after, and it kept on going. Khmelnitsky wasn't killed till a number of years later. Now in Ukraine, right, he's a big hero, right? He's the people's person. Although he caused the death of who knows how many people. The truth is, Taka, who knows how many people, because the Shach gives a number 100,000. There was another person who was alive then, who was one of the great students of Reb Shamshon. His name was Nosson Nota Hanover. Nosson Nota Hanover. And he was alive then, and he was a student of Reb Shamshon. And he wrote a sefer called Yevain Mitzula. And in it, he writes a bit of the history about Khmelnitsky and the uprising, and then he speaks about the atrocities and the massacres. It's printed, but you have to have a real stomach. I don't know, should I repeat some of the things that are there? On the one hand, Zohar, on the one hand, Zohar Yemais Olam. You got to know what happened. But it's mamish brutal stuff.
In Echo, in the Kinnis, we don't have Tachas.
You got to know what happened. So here.
No topic might be better.
What?
The
No
Kinnusim
stomach might
were
be
made till 50 years ago, till whatever. People made more Kinnusim. We don't say all of them.
Even after the Holocaust, some people
Yeah.
made some knesset. He writes. He says that they used to cut off the hands and the men and the legs of Yidden, and put them in the road and get their wagons to see if they can get the wheels directly on the remaining goof. They would cut people and just let them bleed to death, slow, painful
This
death.
is all because they didn't have television.
But you have to understand that the Nazis did mass extermination. In 1648 and 49, everything was done
Individual.
by hand, one by one. And they would cut the stomachs of women, open up the stomach, and stick in animals and sew it back up.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
It's a document.
It's documented. He writes it. He was here. He saw it. I mean, we have to know it. You can imagine the horrible things. What? The Reb Nosson Nota Hanover, who was a student of Reb Shamshon Ostrepolyer. He was there. He lived through it. He saw. One cute story, relatively cute. He says the women were forced into marriages. There was one woman who was forced into marrying a Cossack. And one night they're sitting by the bonfire, and she tells him that she's a witch. He says, "Nah, you're kidding." She says, "No, I mean for real." She says, "I'll prove it. Take that spit that you have, keep it in the fire, boiling hot, and stick it through my heart. You'll see what happens. I'll survive." And he took this thing, he stuck it through her, and of course she died. That was her way to... Yeah. There were women that would feel right. There were women that were forced into marriages, and on the day of the marriage, one of them was getting married by the water, and under the canopy, jumped into the water and drowned. And stories, and I won't tell you any more.
What was the reason for this? Was the basic Jews?
Anti-Semitism,
That's it?
like the same thing as the Inquisition, the Crusades, the Black Plague, the Holocaust.
And now,
unfortunately, and
now,
it never ends. It never
every
ends.
book, every child, every
Yoshka
child is
killers.
being
No,
taught.
we killed
Every
Yoshka,
child
no.
is being taught. If you become a martyr, if you kill a Jew,
Yeah.
you become
And
holy.
like there's
Getting better.
Used to be 11 virgins, now it's 70 to 70. This is
72.
72, I know, because
that's
they borrowed the number.
exactly. It's a
from
Kabbalistic. You
Mars.
see, it's a
It's a
mystic.
Kabbalistic number, by the way.
You should know the
That's what I'm
Christians were
saying.
big in Kabbalah in the
Muslims,
1500s. Oh, you're doing the
Different
Muslims?
religion.
Yeah.
Different shtuyot.
No, but in the Christian also they offer them big paradise. Whatever they offer them, whatever they offer
Listen, they
them.
have to learn from somebody,
Yep. Anyhow, so Reb Nosson Nata Hanover, he gives a number about 80,000 people were killed. There were other Sforim written by people that were there. There were many survivors. There's a Sefer Tzoi Koitim. There's a Sefer Tit HaYoven. The Tit HaYoven gives a number close to 500,000.
But people don't realize that was a higher percentage because there were less people.
Yeah. The truth is that...
when you kill 100,000 from a million, it's 10%. Today...
Yeah, well, Holocaust was about a third.
More even.
So there was a big percentage regardless. The modern academics, modern historians believe that all these numbers are an exaggeration. Some of them say it was only 20, 30,000. They prove it because there weren't even 50,000 Jews in the whole Ukraine and Poland, Lithuania. And their proofs they have are very weak because if the times of the Holocaust, there were millions and millions of Jews, in those areas, plus a couple more countries, then there definitely would have been more than 50,000 Jews. You're talking about Ukraine, Poland, Lithuania, the whole area. And the modern academics like, whenever they can, to disprove, records of Frumme Jewish Eden. And fine. We'll leave it with that. But the records of the Rabbonim is tens and tens of thousands of Jews. It was absolutely horrible. But some of the greatest people of the time survived. The Tosfos Yom Tov was alive then, and he was actually a Rav in Krakow. The Tosfos Yom Tov famously was earlier in Prague. Rabbi Yom Tov Lipman Heller, and there was a whole saga with him in Prague. He was thrown into prison, and he was Balabatim, he was thrown into prison, almost murdered. He luckily escaped the town, and he he ended up going to Krakow in the end. He became a Rav in Krakow. And he passed away in 1654, just a couple years after this. But during the saga, he was in Krakow. Tosfos Yom Tov. And he said, you know why this happened? He said, you know why this happened? I would never say this, but he said, it's because people are talking in shul during davening. Yes. He said, you know why the 100,000 people died? It's because of all the chit-chatter in shul. That's what he said. He could have said anything. He said it was this. And he made a famous Misha Beirach of the Tosfos Yom Tov, that he would say that anyone that, that davens and doesn't speak inside the shul will get all types of brachas and beautiful things.
Will you mention this during Shabbos for all the Sephardic members that don't stop?
The truth is that they say that the
Tosfos
Tosfos Yom Tov got this already from his teacher, the Maharal of Prague, who made the Misha Beirach. But the Tosfos Yom Tov said that what happened in Tach V'Tat was a result of all the chit-chatter in shul. Now, B'chal, whenever a Rav says, who can ever say, you know why 100,000 people died? It's because of this and this and this. After the Holocaust, right, there were people that said it's because Yidden were reform, it's because of, you know why the Holocaust happened in Germany? Because 100 years before the Holocaust, you had reform and you have conservative and and you had
Do you know how many super ultra Orthodox community evaporate on the first of the Do you understand how many shuls do people
rejected
Torah? No, I'm saying,
nonsense.
yeah. We don't accept it.
I know, I'm saying.
It's horrible, but you should know there were those that said it. Rabbi Vadia Yosef came out fire and brimstone against these opinions. How could you say such a thing, similar to what the Rebbe, and they had certain similarities. I will tell you that the Arizal said that many of the Yidden that were killed by the Inquisition in Spain, and that was happening in his times, in the mid-1500s, he said it's because in their previous lifetimes, they were Yidden who had followed philosophy and had given up from Yiddishkeit because of rationalistic philosophy. And therefore they came back and were killed by the Inquisition. They had to die al Kiddush Hashem.
Who says that?
The Arizal. So you have times when the greatest Yidden took on themselves just to say the truth the way it is. Now, I'm not, the Tosfos Yom Tov is not the same as the Arizal, but the fact is he said this. An incredible thing. Imagine when he said that in shul, if you were there, it's pretty harsh.
Bottom line, there's a dim v'cheshbon, the same way,
Right. But usually, when it came to the Holocaust, even today, in the Litvish, many Litvish people, and I've heard from many of them, give explanations of why it happened, why God let it happen, why God made it happen, and the Rebbe unequivocally threw it all out and said that we have no right to even go there.
No one knows why.
Right.
No one knows the Yibish's din v'cheshbon.
Yeah,
Moshe,
yeah,
like,
and
especially-
we're barking up the wrong tree. It's not of a benefit
but
to
people
go
need
there.
closure as well, so
Right, no, but you're talking about there were big Litvishes, I've heard them who gave all types of strange. Listen, the Shach in Bnei Brak said that in 1990 by the Gulf War, he said it's going to be a repetition of the Holocaust because Jews in Israel, most of them aren't from. He said these words. And the Rebbe came out by a famous Farbrengen in 1990, and the Rebbe Mamash wiped the floor with him. Yeah.
That's what he says.
Yeah, it does. But Shach said it's only if you keep mitzvahs. If you don't, the psukim say clearly that the land will vomit you out. But he said there's God's going to bring another Holocaust. In other words, insinuating the reason why the first one happened was because of the lack of Torah and mitzvahs. Ooh, and the Rebbe came out. I mean, I wasn't there, people, but it was in 1990, not too long ago. And you could see a written transcript. I mean, it was fire. The Rebbe was appalled at such words. How could a Jew say such things?
From the Rebbe, when he said during the big problems that was in the Holocaust crisis, so the Rebbe said that it's a letter from the Rebbe, I think, that the Messer hängt auf von Haus.
Afilu cherev chadum anachas al tzavoroi. Yep. Well, actually, even if a sharp sword is on your neck, you shouldn't stop praying. We're going to actually get to something. Okay, so the Tosfos Yom Tov said this. He said so he made this mishabeirach, benching people if they're gonna zip it during davening and shul. Incredible. The Tosfos. Okay.
Was killed by Shamshon.
Sorry.
By a Shamshon Tzvi.
Who was? The Tosfos Yom Tov's son.
His son.
I know about his son. There's a story about his son. The Tosfos. So that there was. Hold on. Let's get into this a second. Rab Shamshon was murdered in the city of Polna, near Mezhebush, in Polna. And the story is recorded by Rab Nosson Nota Hanover, who wrote the Yevein Metzula, who was a student of Rab Shamshon. And he writes about the event. He says the Goyim came to the city of Polna. Rab Shamshon went into the shul. 300 balabatim he took with him. And they were all Groise Chachamim. And they were all wearing their talises. And they were davening. And the Goyim came and killed all of them. Now, I don't know if they set the shul on fire or how they did it, but they killed all of them. Now, the Ramchal, I don't have this on the paper. We'll do it. All right. No, don't worry. No, we're not going to be so late. Oh, boy. Okay. No, we're going to be finished soon. The Ramchal, the great Kabbalist, the Ramchal, wrote a sefer called Eitz HaChaim. And in it, he brings a short story. He says that right before them, or maybe as the massacres were starting to begin, Reb Shamshon summoned the Samach Mem, the evil angel in heaven, the Satan. And he asked him, what's going on? Why is this happening? And the Samach Mem, which is the name of the Malach is Samach Mem Aleph Lamed. We don't pronounce the name, so we just say the Samach Mem. He said, listen, let's make a deal, strike a deal. If you, the Yidden, give up Shabbos, Bris Milah, and learning Torah, no one has to die.
So why should it be Jews?
Exactly. Reb Shamshon said, listen, we're not giving up even a drop, even the edge of the letter Yud. We're not giving up. And the Samach Mem basically says, well, listen, if that's your decision, that's your decision. Reb Nosson Nota Hanover says that Reb Shamshon, his teacher, he knew what was going to happen. He knew what was going to happen. He heard from the Samach Mem, there ain't going to be no mercy, no compassion. So Reb Shamshon went to his shul in Polna and he said, "Medaf tshuvaton, you got to do tshuva, you got to do tshuva." And he made an awakening amongst many communities, and the Jews people coming more from overnight. But says the Yevain Metzula, they did tshuva, but it was too late. It was too late. It was too late, and all the kehillas in that area were killed. It reminds me of whenever we learn one.
Maybe it wasn't true. It was in time to get into Gan Eden.
Going to a better place. Whenever we learn Masechta Saita, there's a sefer called Dvar Shaul, which was written by a guy recent, Shaul Kosovsky Shachar, and he lived in the last century, and he was a young man, a prodigy, very clever, and he wrote an unbelievable sefer on Masechta Saita called Dvar Shaul, unbelievable. And he was a young man. He was destined for greatness, and he became extremely ill. And one of his friends came to visit him right before he passed away. And this Shaul Kosovsky Shachar he was mamash destined to be one of the Gedolei Yisrael. Mamash, a brilliant mind, and he was lying there very ill. And he told his friend that, I know why the Eibush is doing this to me. I can understand why. But I thought I had rectified it. I thought I had cleansed it all up. But apparently, as much as I did, it just wasn't enough. Last words. Incredible. Last words. Anyhow.
He passed away?
Passed away.
Out of illness.
Illness was an illness. A young man. A brilliant scholar. You have... you always have some brilliant people and left the world when they were young, and it's, but this is a recent story. Anyhow, but upon him, it says in Yevain Metzula that Shamshon tried to make an awakening, and he did! And people were getting more from and everything. But I guess it was maybe too little too late, and horrible. There is another episode with Reb Shamshon, and that is told over by Reb Isser Zalman Meltzer, who was a big Litvish Gaon in Eretz Yisrael. He had a nice shaykhus to Lubavitch. We spoke about him in the past. Yeah, sure. There's letters. Okay. Nonetheless. Afilo hachi, nonetheless. Yeah. There's lots of... Well, I spoke about it once. Anyhow, Reb Isser Zalman Meltzer tells over the following. That Reb Shamshon heard from an angel in heaven, you want this to stop? 2 of the greatest tzaddikim have to pass away. We'll see soon why. You plus the Shach, Reb Shabsi Kohen. Shabsi Kohen was then about 27 years old. Reb Shamshon, 48. Reb Shamshon got hold of the Shach and he told him that if we give up our lives, we can save. The Shach said, I need 3 days to think about it. 3 days! That's a couple communities done. I need 3 days. Comes back in 3 days, and the Shach says, I'm sorry, I'm still working on my work, the Shach on Shulchan Aruch, the Sifsei Kohen. I need 3 months until I finish the work. Until then, I can't go. And Rav Shamshon said, 3 months, thousands of Jewish lives. And the Shach said, nonetheless, I need to finish this. That's the tradition of Isser Zalman Meltzer. It's fraught with questions. First of all, the Shach didn't die 3 months later. He passed away in the early 1660s. So maybe you'll say, once he didn't take the deal, the whole deal was off. All right. I don't know.
That's clear.
In addition, though, the Rebbe would always speak about the story of Rabbi Yosef Kara, that had Rabbi Yosef Kara merited, he would have died al Kiddush Hashem, but because he had some deficiency, therefore he was left to write the Beis Yosef in the Shulchan Aruch, which means it's greater to give up your life as a Yid than to write Sforim and Halacha, which is against the story over here. All right, I'll let you think about that. But either way, what?
It makes the story...
Okay, so either way.
No, he should...
What?
To that story, he should have given up.
That's my question.
Yeah,
That's one of the
against,
questions.
Yeah.
It's against the story.
Why? The story is he didn't do the right thing.
Which means it's a kash on that story.
It's a kasha on the person. That why didn't he give up? The fight?
Therefore, maybe the story is it's not really documented. It's passed down. It's not written in Sforim. Right. I'm questioning the story. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Because if he was the right thing, he would have done it.
Yeah, based on what the Rebbe explains.
What?
No, the other. No, the Rabbi Yosef, no, he lost his merit because he had a deficiency.
This other person lost the marriage.
No, he chose.
He chose. Okay, I'm just asking a question. Obviously, you can go deeper and maybe explain, but I'm just pointing out
Another share. Okay,
that
I
it's
love it. You
yeah,
have to give
exactly,
up.
yeah, another share.
Wait, this
Okay,
person
hold on.
said-
We got to
the
go.
person
We got to
in
go.
number two, the Rebbe was talking about said the story.
No. The person who said the story was Isser Zalman Meltzer. Passed away 70 years ago.
And who did he hear this?
Oh, he was a big Talmud Chacham. He heard it he was one of the greatest students of Chaim Brisker. Reb Chaim Brisker used to say, when Isser Zalman comes to my shir, he opens up my mind. Isser Zalman, he had a tradition. Okay, we move. So here's really where the shir kind of begins, and that is that the strangest thing of all is there's a promise of the Zohar. The Zohar promised that in the year 1648, Mashiach was going to come. What am I talking about? Yeah, it's a Mefurish Zohar. I wanted to get a copy, but the library with all of its Sfarim is locked. There's somebody, I know one person has the key, locked the key, threw the key in the bay. And therefore it's going to be locked until we destroy that door. So upon him, I couldn't get the Zohar and the copy. It says in the Zohar the following. I'll tell you the words. The Zohar says, black and white, Rabbi Lazar ben Aroch, the great student of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, was sitting and he was depressed. He was caught up in thoughts, and Rabbi Yeshua, his colleague, as we'll read in Pirkei Avos this week, approached him. He said, "You're the light of the world. Why is your face dark?" And Rabbi Lazar ben Aroch said, all of our friends are looking when Mashiach's going to come, and I see it's in a very long time. And he says exactly the year. He said it's going to be in the year 5,408. Right? We're now in 5783. What's 5408? 1648. Tach. That's when it's going to happen. And Elazar ben Aroch is saying 2,000 years ago, it's in such a long time. It's going to be in the year 1648. And he says, I have a pasuk. Two psukim. Bezois yavoy Aaron ala kodesh. When will Aaron go into the Kodesh Kodashim? In the year Zois, Zion, Aleph Tov, 408. Another pasuk, look at number 9. It's a pasuk in Bahar. Bishnas hayovel hazois, in the year of Yovel. Yovel means the year of freedom. Tashuvu ishal chaz, each man will go to his inheritance. Simply meaning, if you sell a piece of land in Eretz Yisrael, when it comes Yovel, you get the land back. But says the Zohar, black and white, you know when Yovel, when will the real freedom be? Hazois. Hey is 5,000. Zois is 408. What does it mean? Each man will return to his inheritance. Each soul will reunite with the body. Tchias HaMeisim is going to happen then. It's a black and white Zohar. Not just, and it wasn't a secret. The great Kabbalists, right before the 1648, the Ramak, Reb Moshe Cordovero, he passes away in 1570. He writes the Zohar. He wants to make everyone aware about the Zohar. The Chesed LaAvraham, the Chidah's great-grandfather, Avraham Azulai, the great Kabbalist, he dies in 1633. He also makes mention, and he's like, and he says, it's not going to, he says, when Mashiach going to come? Not past 1648. This is the last deadline of the Zohar. It was a famous Zohar. The Ramak tells us about it. Avraham Azulai. We're going to see actually the Shach knew about it. Reb Shamshon, everyone knew about the Zohar. They were waiting. 1648 is going to be redemption. Fakert, instead of the dead people coming alive, the living people. Strangest thing. The strangest thing. So here. So first of all, this whole idea of Bechal giving us a time when Mashiach's going to come. Look at number 5. Number 5 is a sefer called Shailas Atshuvas Min HaShamayim, written by one of the Rishonim, Rabbi Yankov of Marvish or Meroy, however you pronounce the name of the city in France. And he's also known as Rabbeinu Tam. Many Rishonim with the name Yankov were called Rabbeinu Tam. The famous one is Rashi's grandson, but then there were others also. There's a few others who were nicknamed Rabbeinu Tam as well. And so was this guy. this guy, this great person. And he was famous for asking questions before he went to sleep, and in his dreams he would get answers. And look at number 5, question number 72. Val Kates Hageula Shol Kmoikein. He asked, when is Mashiach going to come? Ach loy motza hatshuva ksuva lefonov. He woke up in the morning. This was one time he got no answer. Everything else he got an answer. This question he got no answer. He got no answer. Look in number 6. Reb Reuven Margolis, the great Torah scholar Reuven Margolis. He died about 60 years ago. Exactly. So he put out what? The Librarian in Tel Aviv. Unbelievable. He knew every single sefer. The Rebbe has a letter to him and he says, you know everything, but what about Chabad Chassidus? Because he knew lots of Kabbalah, 2 tons, incredible. Yeah. And, what?
What did he answer?
We don't have that. He probably learned he learned everything. He learned everything, and he was unbelievable stuff. Look at number 6. So says Reuven Margolis, on his footnotes on the Shalos Tshuvas Min HaShamayim, even though the rabbis say in Sanhedrin 97b, Tipach Atzman Shal Mechashvei Kitzin, that those that calculate the ketz, the end of days, they should be explode. Tipach Atzman, full of air. They should have a harsh end. In Masechta Derech Eretz, in the first parak, it said if someone gives a time for Mashiach to come, he loses portion of the world to come. So what's going on? So he says the Gemara concludes that you know why it's a problem? It's a problem for those people who say, once the Ketz came and Mashiach didn't come, he's never going to come. That's when it's an issue. But if someone's a real believer and he's only giving an end out of hope, out of belief, but even if it doesn't come, he'll still believe, then it's okay. Because for such people, giving a Ketz is exciting. It gets you involved. It awakens your belief in God. It's a win-win. That's what he says in number 6. The truth is, we'll have a shir mitzvah. I want to have a shir at some point, going through all the people in history who gave a ketz when Mashiach's going to come. And
what do you mean? There is a whole emunah that the calendar is finishing at 6,000, no?
Yes, a Gemara. Zeh katuv b'Gemara.
So my yem yoto davak mo 1648.
No, that can't happen. The truth is, the Rebbe gave the year 1990. In Tafshin Nun, he quoted the Medrash, the Tar Higiyas Man Gulaschem. And the truth is, the Vilna Gaon held the same way. The Vilna Gaon learned it from a Gemara in Sanhedrin that it has to happen 3 quarters into the 6th millennium, which is the year 1990 was 750. Tafshin Nun. Anyhow, but we'll say that for another Shibrak upon him. What?
The Zay in the Chafs, Chaftes, whatever, Chaftes, Chaftes, and then.
Listen, the Alter Rebbe gave, right, famously, that there was a certain ketz, and when it came, the Rebbe Marash told the Tzemach Tzedek, what happened to the Mashiach was supposed to come? The Tzemach Tzedek said, what do you mean? Likutei Torah was printed. That's a revelation. What's Mashiach? Revelation of God, Likutei Torah. The Rebbe Marash said, no, that's not what we were waiting for. We were waiting for the real deal. Not a taste, but the real deal. Samach Vav was a ketz. 1906, and the Rebbe Rashab revealed tremendous chassidus, and there were horrible pogroms in Russia in that year. But let's say this for another time. But Al Kapanim, Reb Saadia Gaon gave a ketz, the Rambam, people gave kitzin, and unfortunately, each time, what it means is it was an opportune time, but God found us wanting. Well, the Zohar gave the ketz, of 1648, and people thought it was for real. What? Right. The Daniel gives a few different numbers at the end of Sefer Daniel, and there's lots of opinions of how to interpret it. That's what Reb Saadia Gaon in Emunas V'Deis tries to figure it out. The Ibn Ezra says even Daniel didn't know what it meant. So how are we supposed to figure it out, etc., etc.? But like I said, we're going to save that for another shir. But upon him, how could it be that the Zohar gave this ketz, and what happened was Punkapoy, it was the worst atrocities? How'd that happen? So there was somebody alive during 1648, and he lived. His name was Reb Heschel of Krakow. There were 2 people, just to clarify. Oh, this is einen gewinnt zwei. There were two people called Reb Heschel of Krakow, very important. Both of them were teachers of the Shach, Reb Shabsi Kohen. One's name was Yoshua Heschel, and he was a Rav in Krakow, and he died in 1648, not from the Khmelnitsky pogroms. He died during that year, as far as I know. And he died in 1648, and he was known as the Magine Shloima. If you look in number 7, just to get a picture of who these people were, don't worry, it's going to go quick from now. We're mamash almost done. Now, number 7, this is Yoshua Heschel of Krakow's grandson talking. Listen, rabbis, my grandfather told in the ears of his students while he was alive that Rashi once appeared to him, and he told him with much joy, and he said, fortunate are you in this world and in the next world, because you saved me from the mouths of the lions, of the sharp Baalei Tosfos. Because Yeshua Heschel wrote a whole sefer defending all Rashi from all of the kashas of Tosfos. And Rashi said, I will come to greet you in the coming world with all of my students. And Tak Hava, exactly, we're in the middle of number 7, half an hour before this Yeshua Heschel passed away, in the year 1648 in Krakow, the Gedolei Yisrael of Krakow came to his bedside, and he told them the following: make space, because our teacher, the light of our eyes, Rashi, Rabbeinu Shlomi Yitzchaki, has come with all of his holy retinue with him, and is receiving me with joy to show me the path of life, because I stood to his defense to answer the kashas of Tosfos against him. And that's why he called the name of his sefer Magine Shloima, the shield of Shloima. So this is Yeshua. You see that they were talking about incredible Torah scholars, holy men. Rashi came to him to thank him. Rashi's there when he's dying. Yeshua Heschel of Krakow. He dies in 1648. How did he get his job in Krakow? Look at number 8. Moreinu Harav Reb Nosson Shapiro. This is the Megala Amukus. The Megala Amukus Nosson Shapiro was a Rav in Krakow. He dies in 1633. He dies in 1633. And he was Zakin Moed, he was old, and they asked him who should be the next rabbi. And he made a Shilas Cholam, he made a question in a dream, and he got an answer from heaven. It says in Parshas Kisisa, Hineni Oimed Sham Lofanecha, Hashem tells Moshe, I will stand before you, Al Atzur on the rock. Hineni Oimed Sham Lofanecha is Rosh Tevis Heschel, Al Atzur is Gematria Krakow. So that's why the Heschel needs to come. So the Yeshua Heschel, the Magine Shloima, comes in the mid-1630s. He's there for 15 years roughly. He dies in 1648. He was a teacher of the Shach. But there was another fellow called Avram Yeshua Heschel, who was also a rabbi in Krakow a couple years later. And he was also a teacher of the Shach. And he's known as the Rebbe Reb Heschel. There's two different people. The Rebbe Reb Heschel. And he lives through the 1648. And he did everything he could to help the Jewish communities that were massacred. He traveled around with Goyish diplomats, Yiddish Gvirim. He mamash tried to turn over the world. And he was involved with being Matir Agunus. By the way, Rabbi Yaakov Emden, just to throw in a story, Rabbi Yaakov Emden has a sefer called Megillah Sefer, where he writes an autobiography about himself. In the introduction, he speaks about his a story that happened to his Zayda. Rabbi Yaakov Emden's father is the Chacham Tzvi. The Chacham Tzvi's father's name is Yaakov. This Yaakov was newly married in the year 1648. And when the Cossacks came to his town, he was taken outside. The Cossacks were slaying people. One Cossack, he told this Yaakov, kneel! He kneeled in front of him. The Cossack took his sword and was ready to swipe. And there were a couple of Yidden from the distance that were watching. All of a sudden, the Cossack, instead of cutting off, he picks up his sword and with the handle of the sword gives him a zetz to Yaakov, and he says, dirty Jew, go run for your life. Rabbi Yaakov doesn't need to hear twice. He runs. The problem is he knows that just because this Cossack left him off the hook, the other guys are going to kill him. So he ran amongst the other slain bodies. This is, I'm telling you word for word what Yankov Emden writes. He lies amongst the other slain bodies that were lying there, feigning dead. During the day, didn't move an inch. At night, when it was dark, he felt it was safe, so then he went and tried to find food. It was for over a week until the Cossacks left town. Now, in the meantime, his wife and his wife's parents had, they had left town. They'd left, in the nick of time, they had been separated. So his wife and Shver were living elsewhere, and everyone thought he was dead because witnesses had seen the Cossack pick up his knife. He screamed, "Kneel!" And they didn't know the end of the story, that he ended up surviving. There was talk of the woman remarrying. And the question came to Reb Heschel. Rabbi Yankov Emden says it came to Reb Heschel. I assume it's the Rebbe Reb Heschel of Krakow, the second one, who was alive at the time. And Reb Heschel heard from numerous witnesses who saw the death. He paskened she could remarry. So the woman got the okay. Something, and it says Rabbi Yankov Emden that something in his Baba's heart told her that her husband's still alive. She felt it. She wouldn't remarry. It took 6 months for her husband to find out where the family had moved to and to travel there. And he shows up. And you can imagine that his wife, when she sees her husband, it was a happy end to that particular story. Says Rabbi Yankov Emden, when Reb Heschel saw what happened, he said, "You know what? I'm not paskening on any more agunas shilas at all. I'm not touching any more agunas. Baruch Hashem that this didn't end up in mamzerim." But he said, "I don't trust myself." And he said, "The truth is, I don't trust witnesses. It's a time of war. People don't know exactly what they see." And he refused to be matir any more agunas. So other Rabbanim had to do it. The Tzemach Tzedek, the Rabbi Nachum Mendel Kruchmal, who was a great Rav at the time, he was involved in being matir agunas, and also Reb Heschel and others. The Taisus Yom Tov. Yeah, that's the Rogatchover. The Rogatchover once said something sharp about the Tzemach Tzedek. They asked the Rogatchover, "Tzemach Tzedek, you're a Rebbe?" "No, I'm talking about the first one. And yeah, in fact, the Tzemach Tzedek, I'll tell you, we have a tshuva of his, that there was a story in Tachvatat. There was a Yiddish man. It's black and white. You can see, I think it's true, response to number 70. He says that there was a man who saw that his wife had been abducted by the Goyim, and she apparently had converted to save her life, and the Yid survived. He comes to another town. What is he? He wants to marry another wife. Rabbeinu Gershom said, you can't marry a second wife. Yeah, but if the first wife has converted to another religion, she has no more defense. And the Tzemach Tzedek, the question came to the Tzemach Tzedek. And the Tzemach Tzedek...
400 years ago.
Yeah, it was this was the story he died. He passed away in 1661. He was a very active rabbi in the time of the Khmelnitsky Massacres. This is a story that he actually had about a story then. He says he heard all the witnesses. He says the woman abandoned Yiddishkeit because she didn't. What did she do? She allowed the guy to take her to his house. She didn't want to die. Meaning, you don't know that she didn't willingly abandon Yiddishkeit, and therefore he wanted to paskin that she does not lose her right to Rabbeinu Gershom's rule that her husband has no right to marry another wife. And the Tzemach Tzedek got big flack because of it. Because, it's just Rabbeinu Gershom's chayrim, what's the big deal? And the Tzemach Tzedek says a little while later, the woman shows up, and she's as frum as ever. And the whole story unraveled that the Eidim didn't know exactly what they saw, and this and that and the other. And the Tzemach Tzedek said, I thank the Eibishter that I trusted my gut. So you had these types of stories that, here's just two stories that the Eidim who testified didn't, they thought they saw this and that. But fascinating stuff. Anyhow, the point of all this is that Reb Heschel of Krakow took upon himself to rebuild Yiddishkeit in Ukraine and Poland. The problem is, everyone asked him, what about the Zohar? The Zohar promised Mashiach's going to come. And it was the worst year. Hundreds of thousands of Jews, even tens of thousands of Jews. Horrible. Communities destroyed. What happened to the promise of the Zohar? So I'm going to show you what he says. Look at the next page. We're going to do this quick. First, you got to see number 10. This is mamish unbelievable. Number 10 is a famous story in Masechta Sanhedrin. Go the first line, a couple words in. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi found Eliyahu Hanavi. Eliyahu was standing at Pischa de Ma'art of Rab Shimon. Number 10, the end of the first line. Eliyahu Hanavi was standing in the entrance of the gate, of the cave, of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. But Pashtus, it means the actual cave where Rashbi spent 12, 13 years. Amar Lei, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi asked him, Elijah, Asina, will I come la'alma da'asi to the world to come? Amar Lei, he said, Im Yirtzeh Ad Nazeh, if God wants. Yeah, if God wants, he'll come, Im Yirtzeh Hashem. Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, he said, Shnayim ra'isi v'kol gimel shamati. I saw two people, me and Eliyahu, but I heard the voice of three. I heard the voice of God. Amar Lei, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi asked Eliyahu, Ei Masai Osi Mashiach, when will Mashiach come? Amar Lei, Eliyahu says, Zil Shaile, go ask him. Go ask him. So Frek Rabbi Yeshua, Heicha Yosef, where is he? Eliyahu says, Apischa de Kartan, the entrance of the city of Rome. Umay Simoni, Yeshua says, how will I identify him? Says Yosef Beini Ani, he sits amongst the poor. Soiv the Chalom, who have maladies, physical illnesses. What?
Lepers.
V'kulon shoru v'asiri b'chad zimna. All of the rest, they first take off all their bandages and then they reapply. Iyu, but this guy, Mashiach, shori chad v'asichad, he does one at a time. He takes off one, puts on a new one at a time. Dilma mibaina, because maybe he will be summoned to redeem the Yidden. Doloyak, he shouldn't have to. If it's going to be completely unbandaged, then to rebandage himself will take a long time if it's from top to bottom. Which means, Mashiach is going to come as a mummy, he's going to come as Azal Legabe. So Yeshua ben Levi found him. Amalei said, Shalom Alecha Rabbi Amari, peace unto you. Amalei Shalom Alecha Bar Levoy, peace unto you, the son of Levi. Says Rabbi Yeshua, Le'emos Asema, when are you coming? He says, Hayoim, today. I'm coming today. Guess what happened? He didn't come. So also, Rabbi Yeshua went back to Eliyahu. Amalei, and Eliyahu said, My Amalach, what did Mashiach tell you? He said, Shalom Alecha Bar Levoy, he said, peace unto you, the son of Levi. Says Eliyahu, he promised that's a promise that you and your father are members of the world to come. Fine. But says Rabbi Yeshua, Shakuri Kashakabi, he lied to me. He said, I'm coming today, he didn't come. Says Eliyahu, you misunderstood. Hachi Amalach, you know what he meant? He meant the pasuk in Tehillim. Hayoim, today, im bekoiles ishma. It's the beginning of a pasuk. Today, if you listen to my voice. The Rebbe actually wants to ask, but that's not what Mashiach said. Mashiach just said the word Hayoim. He didn't quote the rest of it, just said Hayoim. And the Rebbe said, in the eyes of Mashiach, it's always today. Mashiach believes that today the Yidden are going to be virtuous. In Mashiach's eyes, it's Taka today, because it's going to be B'Koilis Yishmo. And then, unfortunately, we let him down. Okay, so now that you know this, look at number 11. Number 11 is the Sefer of Reb Heschel, called Chanukas HaTorah. Bezois Yovai Aaron ala Kodesh is going on that pasuk in Achremus. Says Reb Heschel, Pshata Dekra, in number 11, line number 2. And the simple meaning of the pasuk is, Bezois Yovai Aaron. What does it mean, Zois Aaron will come? Remez al Tov Ches, it was a hint on the year 1648. It's Man HaGeula, because Zois is Gematria Tov Ches. And like I said, it's a Mefurish Zoyer. But Va'afduloi Bo, Frek Reb Heschel, is amazing, he's writing about what he experienced. He didn't come. Nechakaloi, we got to hope to him. Why? Because you have to know what the Zoyer meant. If you ever open up a machzer, when you say unasana toikef, utshuva utfila utstaka mavirin esroya hagzera. There are words on top of tshuva, tvila, and staka. On top of tshuva it says tzoim, fasting. On top of tefillah it says koil, a voice. On top of stock it says mom and money. As if every machzer has, as if you have to explain what stock is. I mean, what's going on? So says Reb Heschel, Ki tshuva, tfilu, tzedakah, ma'akvim hagula. What holds back redemption is tshuva, tfilah, and tzedakah. They are tzoim, koil, and mammon, as it says in every single machzer. We don't even know who put it there. Maybe it was always there. Maybe those words were always there. But kol chad begematria kufav, each one equals 136. Tzoim is 136. That's tshuva. Koil, which is tefillah, is 130. So too is mammon. Altogether equals 408. 40 Zeis. Zeis is not the year. Zeis is a combination of tshuva, tefillah, tzedakah. L'ram is in bekoilis ishmo, to hint to the fact that when Mashiach going to come, if you have Zeis, what's Zeis? Zeis is tshuva, tefillah, tzedakah. So just like the pasuk of Hayoim today is contingent if you listen bekoilis ishmo, so too the year 408 is contingent on the avodah of 408. Ubein kulam begematria 408. And that's what it means, bezois aram will come ala kodesh. And then this is the pirish in the pasuk. It's beautiful. Me'eis Hashem hoisazois in Tilim. You know what those words mean? From heaven, me'eis Hashem hoisazois. Zman ago, from heaven we heard 408. From the Zohar we heard 408. 1648. Ach, how does the pasuk end? It's niflos beinin. It's a wonder in our eyes. Mashiach didn't come. What's the next pasuk? Zeh hayoim os Hashem. Hashem's waiting for today. But just like the word today, Rabbi Shua ben Levi thought it meant today on the calendar. But really it meant today, do the will of Hashem and then Mashiach will come. So too, that's what Zeus means. So me'eis Hashem hoisa Zeus. Hashem said 408. The flois beinena, we're waiting. Zeh hayoim, hayoim. When God says hayoim, when God gives a day, it means in bekoilis ishmo. Aval isa begemar perik chelik. Rabbi Shua ben Levi Mashiach, when are you going to come? He said hayoim. You're a liar. No. And look at the last line. He says v'lozeh kivan hakro hazeh. Now you understand the second pasuk. Or zeh hayoim asa Hashem nogila. God's waiting for today, but when God says hayoim, it's like David says in Tilim im bekoilis ishmo. So Zeus means the same thing. This is what Reb Heschel has in his Sefer. Now, he actually didn't write the Sefer. His students wrote the Sefer. But this was a response to explain what the Zohar said. And he was mafashim, he publicized it. He said, don't give up. We all got it wrong. Just like God, Mashiach said today. Yeah, today, on the calendar today, whatever the date is today. But today, if you listen to the will of God. So to Zeus, 408, yeah, you could have it in that year. But if you have 408 of Tshuva, Tfilut, Tzedakah. If you look at number 12 in the Pardes Yosef, he says the Mukubalim showed everybody that the year of Mashiach is Zeus, Gematria 408. And so too the holy Goyen Reb Shamshon of Ostrepolyer. Reb Shamshon of Ostrepolyer publicized Mashiach's coming in 408. And when the year passed and didn't come, Yisrael naflu b'yiyush, the Yidden gave up. Or Pirsam Adoni Avis Keni Hashach. The Shach publicized a kol kur, the Shach publicized news that we all missed the pshat in the Zohar. Me'eis Hashem hoisa Zois. Zois is the year 408. God agreed on that year, but then it never happened. Nifloas beinenu. Avol zeh yom asa Hashem. What's lacking is the today, and the same Gemara in Sanhedrin. So the Pardes Yosef quotes this that the Shach publicized it. You see in number 11, it's from Reb Heschel. Well, the Shach was a student of Reb Heschel. So what happened was apparently when the Shach heard this pshat from his teacher, he went around everywhere and he told them. He told them that this is the pshat. Now the truth is, the Gemara says in Sanhedrin that redemption is like birth of a baby. Before the birth, lots of pain. Before Mashiach comes will be chevle Mashiach, the pains of Mashiach. So the truth is, when all this Jewish blood, many Yidden felt this is the prediction of the Zohar. This is just the birth pangs of Mashiach. And that's why when Shabsai Tzvi, rears his head a couple years later, 1666 was the big year Shabsai Tzvi. Only 18 years and 17 years after this. People bought into it because it all made sense then. It made sense that the promise of the Zohar was true. And 1648 was the beginning. It's the beginning of the birth, labor pains. And that's why Shabtai Tzvi got such a big following. It was very much because of this Zohar. But you see, Reb Heschel and the Shach tried to publicize It's not about a calendar date. It's about us getting our act together. Now this takes us to the last point. This is fascinating. There's a look at number 15. Reuven Margolis again. He says, look in the Sefer La Yeshorim from the Goyin Reb Zorach Eidlitz. Reb Zorach Eidlitz was a big Kabbalist, a scholar in Prague. And the Noida B'Yehuda was a big fan of his, etc. After the times of the Noida B'Yehuda, 1700s. In Drush Gimel, he said it's a mitzvah to be mefarsim what the Goyin Moreino Rav Feivish said about the Zohar, Bezois Yovei Aaron, Harikvar Kola Kola Ketz, but the time passed, nothing happened, Dain Loiba. And Reb Zorach Eidlitz quotes the same word of the Shach and Reb Heschel and this Reb Feivish, that it's the Tzoim Kol Moment, it's the 3:136, it's the 408. And then he says, V'zeu shenirmaz b'Masorah. This is hinted in the tradition. What tradition? I have two psukim on the page, 13 and 14. Tell me what you think. Look at number 13. Go back to number 13. Vayoyim Mishol to his son Yonason. Madua loibo ben Yishai. How come ben Yishai didn't come? Not today, and not yesterday, not today, elalochem. This is the big question. Where's Mashiach? How come ben Yishai hasn't come? Not yesterday, not today. Look at number 14, Pasuk in Shmos. What? Yeah. Paroi tells us, when the Yidden were told that they have to make their own straw, right, then the number of bricks will not be diminished. Madu aloi chelisim chokchem. Why didn't you finish your quota? Lulboin, to make the bricks, kitmol shulsham, like yesterday, day before, gam tmol gam hayom. Very similar Pasuk. Madu aloi gam tmol gam hayom. Very similar. Only two psukim in Nach.
Follow term can tell us that.
Right, yeah. So I can tell you because these people say it too, you know. So this guy in Reb Feivish that Reb Zorach quotes in number 15, and some other people said like this. You know what these two psukim are telling you? One of them is asking the Jewish question on the Zohar, and the other one is giving the answer of Reb Heschel. Number 13 is the kasha. Madua loibo ben Yishai. Why didn't Ben Yishai come when? Gam Tmol Gam Hayom. What's Tmol Gam Hayom? Tof? Gimel? Hey. So the Hey is 5,000. No. The Hey and the Gimel is Ches, and the Tof is 408. Why didn't Mashiach come Tmol Gam Hayom? Why didn't he come in the year 408? What happened to the promise? Where's Ben Yishai? Isn't there a calendar date that it's going to happen? So the answer is, what does God respond in number 14? God responds, why didn't we finish our quota? Why didn't the Jews do what they have to do? Tmol Gam Hayom. We have our own 408. We have our own Tov Gimel Hey. Tshuva Tfilu Tzedakah. So the Pasuk Shol is screaming the Yidden's Taina. Why didn't Ben Yishai come in Tmol Gam Hayom? Where was he? And the response is what Paroi says, why didn't we have to do our part, Tmol Gam Hayom, which is the 408. A fascinating thing. And this was publicized by many people that lived through the massacres to comfort people. What happened to the promise of the Zohar? And the answer is that we got to get our act together. You know, the Gemara Rav says in Sanhedrin, Kvar kol akitzin, all the dates have passed, it just depends on Shuvah. We just got to get our act together. We got to get our act together. And that was supposed to... Yeah. It's like Martin. Yeah, 2,000 years ago you said it.
But if you think about the sequence of events, everything went perfect, meaning exactly how it should be. During their times, they had all the anti-Semitism. Now, today, Baruch Hashem, there is none of that. It's never going to happen again. I don't think it can happen again. There's too much positive in the world. There's too many.
You hope so.
You know, there's so many goyim that already, they're encouraging goodness, like America's Midrash Chesed. I'm talking about. There's no open massacres anymore. It ain't happening anymore. At least.
Eretz Yisrael every day. Where? Every day in Eretz Yisrael, people getting killed by terrorists every day.
Yeah, but it's different.
You hope if Goyim would have their way, all these white Americans, Anyway, what's the point you're trying to bring out? Let's hope, Taka, you're right. It will never happen
we-
again.
Right now, we are already in the days of Mashiach.
Oh, the
We
birth
are
pangs are over.
The physical birth.
Yeah,
pangs,
the
birth
holoc.
pangs,
That's
so
it.
other things.
And
The-
where the
the
baby's
big
coming
one-
out.
Yeah, we're in the days of Mashiach. There's a lot of shefa in the world. There's an abundance of food. There's a lot of parnasa to be
But
made.
this is not. This is a. This is
the beginning.
a state.
It's a stage.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
It's a whole stage.
There's going to be many stages.
The whole world
Many
is going to have to be
stages.
destroyed at one some
Right,
point.
but well, question: what does that mean? Will be destroyed?
Right.
The Shalom writes that there's going to it says in Yeshaya b'menuso loy seleichon that in contrast to leaving Egypt, which was Borach Am, we fled.
Right.
Now we're not going to be in haste. There's nothing to run from. It's going to be a slow progress. These are all signs of Mashiach. The Rebbe would say all of the peace and everything today. These are all strong signs that the coming is imminent, but not that it's
The ultimate end is imminent. Yeah.
right. It's imminent, and these are already a foretaste.
And
But
also-
the actual coming of Mashiach hasn't begun.
Right.
This is a
It also
taste.
says when Mashiach comes, the ultimate days, it means we're never going to die. I mean, it's going to be
Yeah.
we're going to be alive forever. It's a whole nother. There's no Torah Chadash. How
No,
we understand that? There's a
What it's
whole-
like is, there's a well-known Reb Pinchas Koritzer gave a well-known mashal that why at the times of the Beis Hamikdash, you had the Tanoim, Kabbalists, they saw so much, and then 1,000 years ago, very few Yidden were Kabbalists, very few Yidden actually perceived God. Who had Ruach HaKodesh? Very few people. And then a couple hundred years ago, boom, you have hundreds of Chassidish Rebbes. All of a sudden, it's come back. We've gone back. It's like the times of the Beis Hamikdash again. And the Pinchas Koritzer said it's very simple. You have a town with a lot of light. Yeah, you leave the town. You're walking away. Every step you take, it's a little bit darker, a little bit darker, a little bit darker, until it gets almost completely dark. But you're going somewhere. You're going to another town. As you start to approach the other town, it starts to get light. And every step you take closer gets lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. So he says, when we left the second Beis Hamikdash, so the times of the Tanoim, Ameroim, the light diminished, until there were the Dark Ages, literally the Dark Ages, right? The medieval times. Mamish, finster, it's dark. Then, by the time the Arizal came on the scene, we started getting closer, so the light starts to shine. And that's why 200 years ago there were so many Chassidish Rebbes, because the light of Mashiach was... So then you would think, though, today should Mamish be. Mamish should be...
There is a lot.
That's
of
why we have a Rebbe greater than any other Rebbe.
There's a famous dollar, so someone went by there and asked if the Holocaust can happen again.
So the
Said
problem...
tomorrow.
Morgan in the free.
Morgan in the free.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, what?
What did you mean by that?